Our purpose for reading today is to read the story to find out what lesson the two dogs in this story teach us. What kinds of stories have characters who are often animals that speak like people? These stories also have a moral or a lesson. If you said fables, you are correct. Today's story is called The Two Dogs. One dog lives with humans, while the other lives out in the wild. Before we begin reading, there are some spellings that we need to look at in today's story. For O space E, which is the sound O, we have the words home, shown, and rope. For A space E, the sound A, we have the words tame, stared, safe, and plates. We also have three tricky words. Remember, a tricky word is a word that we can't sound out because it doesn't follow our rules that we have learned so far. Our tricky words for this story are one, once, and two. Before we begin reading, here are some vocabulary words that we might need to know. The first word is plump. Plump means well-fed or not thin. The second word is scraps. Scraps are small pieces of leftover food. The next word is tame. Tame means not wild, living with people in their home. And then the next word is free. That means able to do what one wants, wild. Once two dogs met. One of them was a tame dog who made his home with men. One was a dog who ran free. The dog who ran free stared at the tame dog and said, "Why is it that you are so plump and I am so thin?" "Well," said the tame dog, "I am plump because the men feed me. I do not have to run all the time to get my food. My job is to keep the home safe when the men are in their beds. When they wake up, they feed me scraps of food from their plates." "Your life must be a fine life," said the thin dog. "I wish my life were like yours." The plump dog said, "If you will help me keep the home safe, I bet the men will feed you too." "I will do it," said the thin dog. But just as the thin dog said this, the moon shone on the neck of the plump dog. The thin dog said, "What is that on your neck?" "I am on a rope when the sun is up," said the plump dog. "Rope?" said the thin dog. "Do they keep you on a rope?" "Yes," said the plump dog. "When the moon is up, the men let me run free. But when the sun shines, they keep me on a rope. I cannot run and be free when the sun is up, but it is not so bad." "No, no," said the thin dog as he ran off. "I will not have a rope on my neck. You can be plump. I will be free." I'm going to help you give a summary of today's story. When we summarize, we retell just the important parts of the story and not every single detail. A summary tells who was in the story and the main events. What happens first in The Two Dogs? If you said a wild dog and a tame dog meet, you are correct. What does the wild dog notice about the tame dog? Good job. The tame dog is plump. What does the wild dog ask about the tame dog? You're right. He says, "Why are you plump and I am skinny?" How does the tame dog answer? Good job. He says that he is fed food because he keeps the home where he lives safe. How does the story end? Good job! The wild dog notices a spot on the tame dog's neck, and he learns that the tame dog is kept on a rope. The wild dog does not want to be on a rope, so he runs away to be free. Here are some discussion questions we can talk about on the story of the two dogs. Were there any parts of the story that were confusing to you? Talk about that with a family member. The tame dog says his job is to keep the men safe when they sleep at home. What do you think the dog does to keep the men safe? Good job. Why does the free dog think at first that the tame dog has a fine or easy life? Good job. Why do you think the free dog is thin? Good job. Why do you think what do you think is the lesson or moral of today's story? What part of the story can you use to support your answer? Great job! Thanks for thinking so hard. Now we're going to talk about the writing process. As you remember, we talked about when we were still meeting at the school, the writing process. What's the first part of the writing process? You're right. The first part of the writing process is planning. That's when we use our thoughts and think about the story that we read, and we put down a plan, and we just get some thoughts together and we start coming up with ideas about what to write about. What's the next part of the writing process? Good job! You're right. The next part of the writing process is called drafting. That's when you make a draft and take all of your ideas from your plan and put them onto paper, and that's when you start to organize your ideas. What is the last step of the writing process? You're right, it's editing. That's when you take your draft and you go over it with a friend or a family member and you fix some mistakes you made. So that it would be like maybe you forgot to put a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence, or maybe you put a period as punctuation at the end of a question when it really should be a question mark. Good job! Today in our video, we're going to use the first step of the writing process, planning, to think about the story that we just read and retell it together in a type of writing called a narrative. A narrative retells events of the story in order. It includes details about what happened in the story. In your packet, you have a sheet of paper that it can be used to plan a writing. At the top, it says the name of the tale. You should write the title of the fable that we just read in this section. The name of the tale is the title of the story or fable. The title is written in bold at the top of the first page of each tale. The word tale is another word for story or fable. When you write, remember to use the word tale to refer to the story in your writing. The next section asks who. In this section, you should fill out information about the characters. Who is the story about? The main characters. The next section says where. That is the part where you need to fill in the setting of our story. So, where does our story happen? Where does it take place? The what, or the plot, section is broken into 3 sections. You should be able to tell me what happened in our tale from beginning to middle to end. In the what section, remember that a plot of a story can be divided into the beginning, middle, and end. What happened in the beginning of the story? We could say, once there were. Good job! Now we can talk about the middle of the story. What happens in the middle of the story? We can say, next in the tale. And finally, what happened at the end of our story? We can say, at the end of our tale. Good job! Now, it is important that we remember to write what happened in the correct order in which it happened. Today we read a story together called The Two Dogs. The Two Dogs is a special kind of story called a fable. After we read the story, we talked about some questions, and hopefully you had some discussion with your family about the story that you just read. After we answered and asked some questions, we looked at the beginning of the writing process, the planning step in the writing process that goes along with the packet that you had. Families, I appreciate all of your hard work. As always, miss you, love you. Talk to you tomorrow.